Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn Smith, and as always, I am the voice and the astrologer behind the YouTube channel Nonconformist Conscience. There's also a webpage. I will post the link in the description because I do a written forecast every week, and sometimes it can be a little more detailed than this. And it goes more into the phasal relationship within the aspects that the planets are having. So if you're someone who's a student of astrology and is really wanting to learn more about the phases, I tend to speak a little bit about it on here, but I go into more in depth in the written report. And there's also a Facebook page where I have updates. There's also an Instagram page. You can find me on all social media. Okay, I did this spiel. Let's talk about your astrology forecast for this week. This is on the heels of the eclipses. And so there's a lot happening that I want to talk about for us to consciously use. So let me get after it. This week we have Mars, who on the 4th conjunct the south node and the sign of Libra. At this point in time, you've got to remember Pluto is still square the nodal axis, so it's squaring this Mars as well. It will square in perfection later this week. This Mars and south node is still ruled by a Venus in Leo, who later this week, and I will talk about this, is moving into the sign of Virgo. We also have Mercury leaving the sign of Virgo and entering the sign of Libra. So Mars conjunct the south node and the sign of Libra is really interesting to think about, considering that Mars is also the ruler of that north node in the sign of Aries. So a lot can be highlighted this week around what it is we're desiring to do on an evolutionary level as a way to harmonize and create balance. This is also where your needs meet the needs of another person. And Mars in the sign of Libra can kind of sometimes get frustrated. I know even for me personally, I've experienced that with others this week of just different dynamics around this. So for some people, how this can manifest is as them feeling like other people are not listening to them, or not viewing them on equal terms, or not showing them the respect that they are wanting. And so there can be challenges that come up this week to highlight if there's any type of imbalances in any of our relationships. I know I've seen clients this week who've had challenges with work and also their one-on-one relationships. I have a friend who's been talking to me about how she just moved out of her apartment where she was sharing it with 2 of her friends, which is actually a really natural expression in her case of this. She was culminating these dynamics of where she was acquiescing or not listening to herself about what it was she needed to do. And in true Mars fashion, she listened to the others and made a choice based upon that was right for all parties involved. So this is just one little way that this can come about, but it can be challenging, and things are really highlighted with Venus, the ruler of this, and still in the sign of Leo, entering those late degrees of Leo. To me, this represents, like, how are you self-actualizing? Is it coming from a place of self-love? Are you trying to impose on other people, or maybe people trying to impose on you? There can be situations where others are coming to realize that they might have been viewing others on equal basis and coming to the understanding that others weren't doing that for them. they were looking at them as subordinates. So there can be this exclusionary, elitist imbalance that can come into play. And for some, this can be about, I love myself and I need to do what is right for me because I'm tired of the imbalances. So, you know, as this conjunction happened on the 4th, Mercury was still in the sign of Virgo. And so that's about taking the practical, necessary steps as a way to heal, but it can also be about denying ourselves. You mix that with Libra, and sometimes this can be like sitting on the fence and not really making a choice. But as Mars moves over this south node and the sign of Libra, it enters a new phase. And so there's a brand new evolutionary intention that is wanting to come about. And it is one about establishing and understanding what values are conducive and what needs are conducive to be in equality within partnerships. We want to be in an egalitarian relationship, and we want to feel like we are respected. So tons can be coming up. And the key is to really listen to what it is that you are really desiring to do. Really taking a look at what it is you need to do and then needing those for yourself instead of expecting it from someone else. If someone shows you who they are, we can't continue to expect them to deliver in a different way. That can really be emphasized right now. And, you know, on this same day, Mercury enters the sign of Libra. So Mercury enters the sign of Libra as Mars moves into a new phase with the South Node and is the ruler of that North Node. So this is a time period until the end of this month to really be gathering information and paying attention to the messages you receive about your relationships. And this can be about learning new ways to establish equality, learning about, you know, if someone new has come into your life, is this a relationship, whether it be friendship or whatever, that is based on equality, or is there a power dynamic coming? Because with Mars and Libra, sometimes that can happen, these power struggles within relationships, and with Pluto squaring that in the sign of Capricorn, it's like trying to impose an authoritative stance. So there can be tons of information we're collecting right now regarding what it is we're going through. Then we also have this Earth trine that's been going on between, and this happened right before Mercury entered the sign of Libra. But the energetics of it will still be felt this week. Is there's an Earth trine between Mercury and Virgo, Pluto and Capricorn, and Uranus and Taurus. And so we've been really called to objectify our inner reality and to take the necessary practical steps to understand what's going on inside of us. And as you know, Mercury moved into the sign of Libra, it's still in a grand trine with Uranus and Pluto. It's just in and out of sign trine. So there's this need to really, we were taking the practical steps, understanding whether or not we're denying ourselves, learning what it is that we can do in a practical way to heal, And now Mercury here in the sign of Libra is wanting us to make new choices around how to put that in place in our everyday one-on-one personal relationships, and to continue to objectify our inner reality. And that is really emphasized with Uranus trining Pluto and Capricorn, whereas Capricorn is about reality, it's about the structure of our reality, and Taurus is about our inner relation to ourselves and the psychology of inner listening. And with Uranus there, it's really wanting us to challenge that inner status quo of what our inner reality is constituting and how that can be projected outwards. Like, it helps us understand, what are we calling in? What dynamics, how are we vibrating? Uranus, what energetics are we vibrating out? Our inner reality can really show us what we're bringing in. If I'm always negatively talking about myself and I feel a lot of judgment and shame, more than likely I'm going to call in people who are critical of me as well. So really taking a look at that, because this gives us an opportunity to challenge that status quo and to bring awareness about it, so that way we can change our inner vibration on this journey that we've all been on since Uranus has been in Taurus, about, transforming our inner relationship. So on the 5th, there's a yod between Venus and Leo. Pluto in Capricorn, and Neptune in Pisces. And Pluto and Neptune are both retrograde as this goes on. To me, this really reflects this dynamic that has been ongoing with Neptune hanging out at this 25-degree mark. This is the 3rd time and final time that Venus is passing over this same aspect of an inconjunct with Neptune and Pluto, and firing up this yod again. So it's the 3rd and final time. And to me, this really reflects, like, as we've been working on our relationship with ourselves and liberating from old dynamics, there's been an emphasis on paying attention to the inner voice. And Jeffrey Wolf Green talks about how Neptune is the higher octave of Venus, and it can be about our relationship with source, but it can also be about our relationship to self and our soul itself. It's the whispers that emanate from our soul, giving us direct guidance, and that is tethered to something much larger than us. And to me, with this, there is something that can be coming back around right now to give us another chance to resolve it. And it's going to take a conscious effort to pay attention to, what has your inner voice been telling you that is of a non-critical nature. I had an experience like this whenever I wanted to do astrology in Oklahoma. I was doing it everywhere else except for where I lived, because I was really afraid. This is like the buckle of the Bible belt here. But what kept coming to me when I was paying attention to the thoughts that kept repeating were about how I needed to bring myself into this community and to just be myself no matter what. And that I could ground within my relationship with myself, and knowing that I was different, but maybe that this place needed a little bit of that, right? There's other people who are very similar to me here, but I was just, the key is I was really afraid to do it, because I definitely have karmic dynamics here, and it was also a lesson in me listening to my inner wisdom and guidance. And then I had to choose to act on that, and that was something that was emanating from my soul. And this is kind of that vibe of needing to pay attention to what it is that you're supposed to be doing right now. What keeps coming up for you? This can be about a relationship. Maybe you're doing a Libra dynamic of sitting on the fence and you're afraid. There's a choice. You know what you need to do. This also has to deal with correct judgment making and our own sense of an inner authority, the ability to ask and answer our own questions. Pluto, sextile Neptune, both in conjunct this Venus. And it helps us to self-actualize through listening to this and making a correct judgment call and staying grounded within our inner authority. So are there areas in your life where you feel like you're giving your power away, or you're not listening to what, what keeps coming up for you, your inner guidance? Are you denying that? Are you suppressing it? That would be a Capricorn function. With both of these planets retrograde, Neptune and Pluto, we're wanting to resolve a dynamic around this. And the release point is this Venus. And so it helps further our evolution and strengthen our relationship to self. And it helps us to self-actualize and to be in self-love and self-dignity when we have the ability to make correct choices and make a correct judgment call. So Neptune will also be in conjunct Mars. And, Mars is ruled by Venus and Leo. And so there is something that can be coming up around, what are you desiring to do? Where has an imbalance been created in your life from you not listening to yourself? Where do you need to listen to yourself? Have you been in self-love? Have you been denying your self-love? Is there something that has come up and you feel like you've lost your ability to have freedom and independence? And what steps can you take to do that? This is also Mercury at this time is in Libra. So there can be messages that we're really receiving right now through our higher mind. Uranus is ruled by that Venus that's in this yod with Neptune and Pluto. So yods can be difficult for some people because they're about readjustment. They can induce humility, like essential humility. I don't feel like I'm ready enough. They can also induce power dynamics of needing to know how to work with another. And the in conjunct between Neptune and Mars really speaks to that. Like, are you able to work with another, or are you having issues around another working with you? And this is about the need to attach yourself to the truth. Neptune is in a yod formation with Mars, Venus, and itself. I just said it, Neptune, sorry. I'm a little tired. So it's like, what action do you need to take as an act of self-love? Are you seeing the truth? Are you attached to the truth? Or are you attached to an expectation or a certain outcome? What is the inner direction telling you you need to do? And it will get better if you're someone who's still sitting on the fence. I will say, sometimes with inconjuncts, as someone who has quite a few of them in their chart, because the inconjuncts have a Virgo-like feel, and whenever I, in the past, have denied my inner voice and intuition about what it was I was supposed to do, I also have a Libra moon, so I was sitting on the fence and denying it. A crisis would get triggered by transit, and it was definitely a fated event, and it was, either an inconjunct was being made by aspect through a transiting planet to one of my natal planets, or there was a transiting yod going down and hitting my own natal chart. And really it would be crisis inducing for me. It would either be a power struggle or I don't feel good enough to do this yet. It would be some form of denying or the inability to show up. And it would throw me back in on myself. And the inconjunct yes, it can trigger crisis, but ultimately that crisis helps us have a very analytical approach to why is this happening, and then self-adjustment ends up occurring in the aftermath after the dust settles. And so really we want to work with these kind of aspects instead of denying them. And so that is why I'm kind of harping on really trusting your inner voice. What is the guidance telling you? And if you're someone who tends to be more emotional instead of and has a hard time being instinctual, but if you're someone who just acts off of emotion, there can be a really big dynamic of the need to be responsive instead of reactive. We can still make choices that we know we need to make, but we can do them in a reactive way and instead of a responsive way. So with Mars still in Libra and part of this, there can be a lesson in how do you do this with integrity, Pluto and Capricorn, and how do you be responsive instead of reactive? I know the other day it got the best of me. I got into it with one of my neighbors. And I thought about it afterwards, and I'm pretty sure I listened to Rose and Kristen's I tend to listen to their month ahead, their monthly Starcast. I just absolutely adore both of them. And I'm pretty sure Kristen even talked about her neighbor, and it made me giggle. But what she even said was she framed it differently than I am. She framed it as, maybe asking someone, how can we make this better? How can we make this right? And that is probably what I should have done. But I'm human and I have to laugh about it. Enough about me, though. I'm so sorry. On the 8th, we will have Mars square Pluto in perfection, and it's in a last quarter. So this is something, there can be a significant amount of tension for some people. This is time to act. I always think of squares as a call to act. It's like emphasized. And with the last quarter square, the key is to not do what's been known and familiar. Like if something's coming up around power struggles or relational dynamics and the need to have freedom and independence, the need to be in your own authority and a natural authority, not authoritarian, there can be something that comes up that can really challenge us. I also see this as a dynamic circling back around as a way to test, we can choose to test ourselves on a soul level to see, are you being self-determined to really get to the bottom of this, to make new choices? And with Mars squaring Pluto, I definitely see it as this. So the key is responsive, not reactive, coming from a place of equality, and being in integrity, and you can't go wrong. So this is why it's really important to know your values. Then on the 9th, Venus will enter Virgo. There she will rule the South Node, Mars for just a little bit more, Uranus and Jupiter, and Mercury and the Sun. Venus and Virgo wants us to heal, wants us to understand what's working, what isn't working, to take the practical steps. Venus and Virgo really wants us to take the information we've been receiving, seeing as there's an emphasis on this, she's now ruled by Mercury. They're in mutual reception. So as we are collecting information and receiving messages about our relationships in the everyday, the day-to-day Virgo, we're in a transitionary period of how do we heal ourselves and our relationship to self. And then seeing how it will heal in other areas of our lives. So this is just this dynamic of also not denying our needs for it for the sake of another. This can come up with Mercury and Libra and mutual reception with Venus. More than anything, this is more symbiotic. It's energy that works really well together. So this can be a catalyst to really heal relational dynamics right now as we gather and receive the information that we're needing to. We can take the practical and necessary steps to promote healing throughout this transit. Venus will oppose Saturn on the 10th while Pluto stations. This is like jacked up energy. Pluto stationing, I know people say it's an outer planet. You can't feel it very often. I tend to think that you can. Maybe that's because since 2008, I've had Pluto going all over my Capricorn stuff. But when a planet stations, I feel like the energy is intensified. This is happening while Venus is opposing Pluto's ruler Saturn in the sign of Pisces. So there's a lot around healing our own inner authority, healing where we've denied ourselves, understanding the truth of our situations, being, throwing off old standards of conduct that were conditioned, allowing that to dissolve. This is a lot of Venus opposing Saturn and Pisces is about self-forgiveness as a form of healing. It's also implementing a more holistic approach as a way to continue the restructuring process that we're all undergoing right now. Is this rooted in your truths, your natural truths, seeing as this Venus is also the ruler of Jupiter? How is this altering your relationship with self in a transformative way? Venus and Virgo being the ruler of Uranus. And Jupiter and Uranus are both retrograde. So there can be a situation where also with Venus opposing Saturn, something reaches a limit. And as Pluto is stationing, it can really emphasize what needs to be done. How are you being in integrity? How are you standing in your natural authority? What steps are you taking to heal yourself? Are you continuing to transform your relationship with yourself? Are you learning how to trust yourself by listening to yourself? So there is a lot of healing that can go on during the eclipse season, and we're gearing up in preparation for it, is what this astrology is really reflecting right now. So I'm looking at this chart as I talk to you guys because I want to make sure I talked about everything that I wanted to, but I want to see if there's anything else. I really like that Ceres and Scorpio is trining Vesta in Cancer right now. It's actually in a water trine with Saturn. So it's Saturn, Ceres, and Vesta. And Vesta is where we're keeping this devotion and sacred flame alive within us. Devotion is deeper than self-determination. It's like a step further than that. And Vesta in the sign of Cancer is really about what are you doing to be inwardly secure? How are you emotionally validating yourself? How are you nurturing yourself? Ceres and Scorpio is really like, how are you recovering your own soul nature right now? Are you getting to the bottom of it? And as you do this, it just keeps this flame of devotion going alive. And then you pull in this Saturn and Pisces, and it's speaking to the restructuring that's going on. And it's like, how are you wanting to merge with other forms of resources or knowledge as a way to understand your inner security. Hopefully you're doing it in a non-distorted Libra way through expectations on another. Hopefully you're able to nourish and devote your to yourself. What do I have to do to be emotionally healthy? How can I get to the bottom of the dynamics as a way to reconnect with, my nature? To me, this is what this water trine is really speaking to. I feel like it's really powerful. And it does it's you see that, Ceres is ruled by Pluto and it's retrograde at this time. So it's like, how am I acting in my inner authority as a way to regain my intrinsic nature and help fortify how I nurture myself and inwardly validate myself? And then Saturn's its ruler. So there's this repeating signature. Saturn being ruled by Neptune, that's in that yod. Am I listening to myself? So this week has so many repeating themes around, are you paying attention to the inner direction? When we pay attention to that, it can be scary because it feels like a leap of faith. Also understanding and circling back to this, that if you're feeling insecure because you're doing something new, that means that you're challenging your inner status quo. That means you're evolving right now. If you are feeling insecure and it's because you're not doing what you're supposed to do, I'm not going to tell you that once you do it, you're not going to feel insecure. Eventually, security will come back because you're creating a new norm. But insecurity speaks to evolution. You can't have one without the other, unless you're just like highly spiritually evolved. And I think that even highly spiritually evolved people experience insecurity because they're humans. So if you are feeling a lot of insecurity this week, just know that you are doing the inner work, and to keep self-reflecting as a way to take personal responsibility for your own healing. Venus and Virgo, is part of this. So Mars next week will enter the sign of Scorpio, and that will feel a lot better. It'll help us get to the bottom of these dynamics even further, and it will help us commit on a deeper level. But this is the week to pay attention and to love on yourself, and know that if you're feeling insecure, that's part of the process. And at the very least, you're challenging your status quo and you're standing on the precipice of a giant leap of evolution. And so I want us to keep that in mind this week. I am gearing up for the upcoming Evolutionary Astrology online conference that is happening the 6th through the 8th. So this weekend. That is why I probably sound a little bit tired. I was sick the other week and I've been catching up, but having so much fun getting ready for this conference. I feel like me and my colleague Helena are going to teach about a really important archetype, Lilith. It reconnects us to our natural feminine root that all of us have. And I would love to see you guys there. If you haven't registered yet, you can either pay for the whole conference or you can just sign up for my class. That's happening on the 7th at 9 a.m. West Coast Central Time. It's 11 a.m. and then on the East Coast it's noon. And I would love to see some of you there. I know some of you are coming. The other thing is, because I'm a little tired today, oh, and I'll post the link for that if you haven't registered. I'll make sure that that's in the description. The other thing is, if you guys have any questions that you want me to answer, I will try to answer some of those pertaining to the astrology of this week. I want to make sure that I dot my I's and cross my T's for you guys, but I am a little bit tired, but I don't have a problem. I have some time. And I wouldn't be saying I could do this if I didn't, but if you guys have questions, put them in the comments, ask me. I will get to them and I will try to answer them. Also, I want to say this, I didn't say it last week, but I had in weeks prior, is if you can't afford a session with me, send me an email. I do this for clients. If you have a sincere want to have a reading, I can work with you. We can do a payment plan. You can pay me what you can. I don't mind. If you feel like this would benefit you, especially during the eclipses, I feel like more people will probably want to. And I love astrology. I feel like it has been so beneficial in my life, and I just want to spread it to whoever I can if they feel like it resonates. So email me. My website has my email on there, and I will see you all, some of you this weekend at the conference, and others of you next week whenever I go over the eclipses. And I'm putting together a fantastic everything you want to know about the eclipses. Verena Burrell sent me a lot of her stuff. I'm gonna put some of Michelle Dinch's stuff on there. And they also have classes right now. So if I don't resonate, maybe one of them will. That's what we're here to do, is we're here to help. And I love contact, like getting people in contact with other people. So be looking forward to that. Thank you and have a beautiful week.